press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Now, Indian and American relations in the spotlight now. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will meet with U.S. President Donald Trump later Monday in an effort to boost bilateral ties. The meeting will be the leaders' first since Trump took office in January. Let's take a look at the relations between the two countries under Trump's presidency.
The United States and India enjoyed good relations during Barack Obama's presidency. The Obama administration supported Modi's Make in India scheme. The administration also considered the transfer of production lines for the F-16 and F-18 fighter planes to India and to strengthen defense cooperation. But conflict between the two nations has been growing since Trump moved into the White House. The two nations have encountered disagreements on a number of economic issues, and the increasing U.S. trade deficit with India has annoyed Trump. The president's policies tightening the issuance of H-1B visas also has dampened India's $150 billion software outsourcing industry. Trump said after America announced its withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord that India had joined the agreement because it would get billions of dollars in foreign aid. Trump's comments irritated India and were strongly denied by the Indian government. However, good signs are emerging on defense cooperation between the two countries. The United States government has reportedly approved the sale of 22 unarmed drones worth $2 billion to India. The deal was expected to be announced when Trump and Modi meet. India will be the first non-NATO country to purchase the drones if the deal gains U.S. congressional approval. 明天 CGTN。
China is screwing us left and right, I guess. They're using unfair trading practices to steal our jobs and wreck our economy. Probably. The American government should do something. If you're like me, you don't know what exactly China is doing that's so bad. So let's find out. Yeah, trade can be boring, but jobs in the economy are kind of a big deal right now. So let's take a journey together of knowledge. And hopefully by the end you'll know what's what. First, what's the trade deficit and why is it so important? No one would care what China did if we didn't trade with them. We only care because it's hurting us, but how? We measure how well trading works by keeping track of how many things we export to other countries versus how many we import. If we're exporting more to a country than we're importing from them, we keep some of their money at the end. But if we regularly import more than we export, that country ends up with more of our money. Having a trade deficit isn't always bad. Maybe we get more money from somewhere else and spend it on this country's cool stuff. Or maybe we can't make stuff fast enough for ourselves since the trade lets us buy more things and feel richer. You can even get a larger trade deficit while the economy is growing. But experts argue about whether trade deficits mean fewer jobs overall. Worse, they generally agree that trade deficits can change what kinds of jobs there are. So trade deficits might be one reason why there are fewer factory jobs now. Other experts say that the way we measure which country gets the value of trade is outdated, since now most complicated things are made in several countries. Which would mean that we aren't losing as much to China as we think, and it's really robots that are taking our jobs. But people talk about the $500 billion trade deficit with China as a problem, so we'll roll with that. So what's China doing that's supposedly so bad? 1. Taxes and regulations. Supposedly, China is either blocking American companies from selling stuff there, or putting up a bunch of roadblocks so no American companies can ever get through, even though selling there is technically allowed. Or China will have such big taxes on imports that a US company can't make any money. For example, foreign cars are taxed here at 2.5%, but at 25% in China. So people say that companies build factories in China rather than exporting the stuff from here. Though China's defense is that some other countries have even bigger taxes on imports, they just don't trade as much, so we don't care. 2. State-owned companies. China is also accused of cheating because their government often owns companies competing with American companies. Then the Chinese company can get special tax breaks and subsidies that make it tons of extra money. China also gives money and assistance to Chinese companies even if the government doesn't own them. This allows Chinese companies to do something called dumping. No, not like that, gross. Dumping is what it's called when a company sells large amounts of something, usually a raw material like steel or wood, far below what it costs to buy in that country, to force its rivals to lower prices and lose money, or keep them high and lose money. A company can afford to do this if it gets lots of free money from its government. To be fair, China says we also subsidize plenty of our own companies, and so does Europe. Either we give them money directly or through tax breaks. Currency manipulation. This doesn't mean that lame magic trick where someone pretends to pull a quarter out of your ear. Though it would be awesome if all Chinese economists also had to go to magic school. Currency manipulation is based on exchange rates. The exchange rate is how much of one currency you can get with another. Rich countries have really valuable money, which is why you can spend like $11 in another country and it counts as $37,000 of their money. A government like China can try to affect the exchange rate through a complicated... You've fallen asleep, haven't you? Fine. Just remember that making your own currency less valuable compared to another country's means that when they buy stuff from you, it's cheaper than it would be otherwise. The stuff China makes is already cheap, so this makes it even harder for American companies to compete on price in the US. On the flip side, other countries complained when we stimulated our economy through the Federal Reserve after the 2008 recession. For more information on how the Fed did it, called quantitative easing, check out the video I made on that. Right now, China might be trying to make its currency more valuable to stop economic problems, so the manipulation could have solved itself. 4. Stealing technology with hackers. For our younger viewers, I'm referencing a historical documentary from the 90s. It was a simpler time. Chinese hackers break into the computers at American companies and steal their ideas and technologies so they can make them for cheap and not have to spend anything on research. They can even steal marketing plans and advertising ideas. The companies can't make too big of a stink, they say, or they won't be able to sell anything at all in China. The former director of the NSA said that Chinese hackers had hit every major American company. We can only guess how much this costs American companies, but experts think it's around $300 to $400 billion a year. For comparison's sake, the federal government spent $3.9 trillion in 2016. The Department of Justice thinks it's cost us more than 2 million jobs as well. The Chinese government, or Chinese companies, will also just buy companies in other countries to get their technology, or to get an advantage over their rivals. On the bright side, it looks like at least the hackers who work directly for the Chinese government have slowed down since President Obama and the Chinese president signed an agreement in 2015. Though, no one knows how much they've slowed down or how long it will last. So what will President Trump do about this? All of these different complaints have been brought against China either at the World Trade Organization, called the WTO, or in court. The problem with the WTO is it is a voluntary thing that the US and China agreed to, so even if we win, China isn't forced to do anything. Or maybe they do something, but it doesn't fix the problem. And we don't always win. Plus, sometimes we ignore the WTO too, like when we lost a case to Brazil in 2014 about money we were paying American cotton farmers. It's the same in court cases because the country has to agree to enforce the ruling. We can seize anything that's in America, like bank accounts, but that would cause its own set of problems. China might start seizing American companies' stuff, or put up more barriers to our trade, which would kill jobs. The same thing might happen if Trump slaps a big tax on Chinese imports, like he's talked about doing. Or if Congress passes a law making it harder for Chinese companies to buy American ones. Right now, the Chinese government seems to think that we need to be able to sell to them too badly to make too much of a fuss. Trump can try to negotiate a deal that both sides would agree to, since China does need to sell to us too, and they're trying to grow their technology industry. And if we block them out, they can't do that. Some experts also think that China is trying to avoid a recession, which would mean they have more reason to negotiate. The trick is whether we can figure out something that solves everyone's problems. What China's been doing so far has made them rich, after all. And there you have it. As always, like and subscribe to know when new videos are coming out. If you want to make it easier to know when a new video is up, click the little bell icon next to the subscribe button so you get notifications. Our next video will cover how people pick colleges, degrees, and jobs, and if there are better ways to do that.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
It was a historic day when India's heaviest rocket GSLV Mark III, carrying communications satellite GSAT-19, was being readied for a launch earlier in June this year. This indigenous cryogenic engine technology has made India self-reliant in launching satellites from its own soil at a lower cost. It took more than 20 years for India to develop this technology, but now there is no looking back.
We are now planning on semi-cryogenic with liquid hydrogen being replaced by kerosene, which is called as special kerosene. LS2 being not an eco-friendly fuel now. That is going to take us to around 6 ton class, and the diameter will be around 6 meters. That is going to be the next step further. It's called HLV.
GSLV Mark III is designed to carry 4-ton class of satellites into geosynchronous transfer orbit, or about 10 tons to low Earth orbit, which is about twice the capability of GSLV Mark II.
For now, I think it's a pretty wonderful job, at least 4-ton capacity is concerned, because earlier times what we are doing is, even if it's a 2-ton satellite, we have to go to the French launch vehicle. So at least from 2-ton to 4-ton, now we have cut down that reliance on the foreign launch vehicle.
And this will surely bring down the costs. Not just that, it is being termed as India's baby steps into multi-million-dollar commercial launcher market on a fully indigenous launch rocket.
If India could develop this Mark III, operationalize it, and maybe assign 1 or 2 missions for commercial purposes, I'm sure we can tackle a lot into that geostationary market too.
When the first developmental flight of GSLV Mark III pierced through the sky, it opened new horizons for India. It has set the stage for India's manned mission and has put India into the rocket club of the world. The government of India has recognized space as one of the priority sectors of its Make in India campaign, but the impetus seems to lack a clear vision. India's utilization of outer space for mostly civil benefits is being questioned, and a need for a holistic space policy to include civil benefits and national security is being reiterated. Ravinder Bawa, CGTN, Delhi.